Welcome in! Much love, Trav here, with another Pauper. Little brew. Every time we go 5-0, we'll do a celebration stream. And this is like another Goblins deck that was able to 5-0. Get the music adjusted there. I decided, I've been playing a lot of Goblins. To be honest, I've had a lot of 2-3 finishes in the past week or so. Had a lot of 3-2 finishes. The 5-0s have eluded me, and the 4-1s were very few and far between. Mainly because this deck loves to flood out on Empty Joe. There was you can ask Zach, I always say this, or you can ask anyone that's been around me, people on Discord, how much I've bitched and whined and complained and thrown a little tantrum about how often this deck likes to draw between 45 and 50% lands in an 18-land deck. And I don't know what was up with that, just bad luck, or if we want to get into conspiracy theories and say that the shuffler is insanely broken or wants to draw around 30 or 40% lands, and no matter how many lands you run, it still tries to gravitate towards that. Possibly there could be some sort of algorithm issue there. However, when this deck doesn't run into that 40 to 50% land, bad luck, I guess you'd call it, the deck does very well. But then I decided, hey, if I'm just going to keep drawing lands, I might as well play a version that doesn't mind as many lands. And so therefore I cut the lightning bolts and cut the reckless abandons and threw this gem in called Goblin Matron, which is basically Pauper's version of 8-whack, as it allows you to basically have 8 Goblin Bushwhackers in the deck with the Goblin Matron. So that's what I've just been messing around with. I just queued it up thinking that maybe I wouldn't do that well, but ended up being a 5-0 finish. So I'm just going to show the replays of the matchups. There is a lot to be gained from these replays. First of all, you get to see better decision making by yours truly when I'm trying to commentate, as well as try to keep the chat going, as well as try to figure out what my next play is. It doesn't end up being the greatest play. I swear I'm a better player than what I show on stream, and I don't think I 5-0'd in a long time on stream, let alone even a 4-1, just because the play mistakes will get you in Magic. Well, with these replays, you'll get to see the opposite end of the spectrum. I think my opponents, a lot of the games were not mine to win, but they played a lot of suboptimal plays, and it cost them the game. And that's what I really like about this Goblin deck, is the ability for this deck to just come back out of seemingly nowhere. So we'll go down the deck tech. Honestly, Lightning Bolt should probably be in the main, and Song of Blood should probably be in the sideboard. When this card is good, it's really good versus particular matchups, as if you go heavy on the creatures, so 40 creatures with Song and Blood, that means that you're going to almost always hit the 3 out of 4, and sometimes you'll get the 4 out of 4 with the Song of Blood, and being able to tack in for all your creatures getting +3 or +4 is huge. I mean, the next closest card that does something similar would be like Dynacharge or Trumpet Blast, and that costs an additional mana for, on average, probably 1 to 2 less buff, and that is, Song of Blood a lot of times is more like 2 cards than 1 at that point, especially when you can hit it on the +2. Alrighty, so again, we'll go down the deck tech. Not much has changed here. I've decided to try the Frenzied Goblin. Again, this was more of a frustration inclusion than it really was. Does it actually belong in this? Because if you're going to be drawing lands every turn, which is what I explained earlier, which was happening, the 40 to 45% on average lands in an 18-land deck, Well, you want something to be able to do with that excess mana, and one of those is to be able to make something not block. This is actually a pretty decent card against Augur of Boluses and Gurmag Anglers, as it allows your opponent, or allows you to get past your opponent's blockers and puts them in kind of a bad situation. Alrighty, so the other addition to this is the Teetering Peaks. If you're flooding with lands again, you might as well get some sort of value out of them. So here's where I decided to go the Teetering Peaks over just the basic lands, because this means that these lands aren't these big feel-bad scenarios. I don't like the cycling, because a lot of times you'll look at a two-lander, one being Teetering Peaks and one a mountain, and you'll be like, oh, well, of course I wouldn't want to cycle that land, so you're going to putting into play tapped. Whereas Teetering Peaks, you're going to put into play tapped and get a +2/+0. The common 1.98, I believe, is an 18 land, or is that 17 lands? Someone do the math on it. It's either 17 or 18 is 1.98 opening starting hand. That's how many lands you'll have in it. So 2. Just round up to 2. And so one of my favorite draws with this particular deck is having a Goblin Cohort or the Goblin, whatever the other, Mogg Conscripts, and then having a Teetering Peaks as the second turn, and then you just chuck out like another Goblin Cohort, and you swing in for 4 on turn number 2, and it doesn't feel like you've used a lot of resources, just to kind of comes into play tap land. Pauper's turned into a kind of a one for one format, and so if you get any additional value out of something like a land, that's huge. The days, I think, of really just being a true aggro deck and just smashing face are over in Pauper with Augur of Bolus being printed. You need ways to kind of go bigger, or go below or above or through, and that's what Teetering Peaks allows you to do against like Augur of Bolus. So yes, Jake, I think +2/+0 is better than +1/+1 in first strike. A lot of the times the Goblin Cohort doesn't need the first strike, but giving the +2 can actually get through some other problematic cards. So the Sledders and I still like 3 Sledders and 3 of the Mogg Raiders, as both of these are cards that do very well against things like Electrickery, or it can allow you to then get your damage through by sacking your blocked creatures to an unblocked creature. And this card, I don't think you want to go above 6 though, because you just want to take 1 or 2 per game. It's fine. You definitely want a full playsets of Mogg Conscripts and the Goblin Cohort. They are incredibly powerful. I even thought about running something like Jackal Pup in here, even though it's not a goblin, but it kind of got awkward with the goblin version of the deck. So again, Goblin Bushwhacker is the best card by far in this particular deck, and so that's why we are running the Grandma Goblin, as Grandma Goblin can go get the Goblin Bushwhacker, and if we do flood out to 5 lands, that's 4 damage that we can get off a top deck Goblin Matron. So the Goblin Matron can go tutor up the Goblin Bushwhacker. The Goblin Bushwhacker can then do the kicker and give the Matron and itself +1/+0, and then swing in for at least 4. A lot of times you start to peter off. That's what Lightning Bolt used to do, is get in there for that last bit of damage. I still, like I said, I think that Lightning Bolt probably still wants to be in here as a 4 of, just because why wouldn't you play one of the best cards ever played, if not the best card ever printed in Magic, in a deck that actually can use it. However, like most of the time, like it puts you in these weird scenarios of, do I like bolt the Augur of Bolus, where a lot of times the creature would just be better than a bolt. There definitely is times where the Lightning Bolt is something you want. Slivers is a matchup where you want it. Even like Heroic, Mono White Heroic, and the Witch, the Kumbaj Witch is one of the key cards, is to bolt off the Witch. So it's it's a card that, again, probably needs to be in here, but I was on tilt, and sometimes tilt leads to some pretty fun stuff, as I was like, screw the spells, we're just going all in on goblins, and it did pretty well. Had a very diverse matchups, so start off with Burn, then on to Affinity, then beat Delver, Mono Blue Delver, and then beat 2 different Tron decks, one of them being Marasatron, which is known for a lot of fog effects, a lot of life gain, and a lot of recursion from their own graveyard. So the sideboard card actually came through. It's funny because I queued this up without even messing with the sideboard, just took out the Lightning Bolts and the Reckless Abandons, and didn't even mess with the sideboard. I probably should have, because I think that something like Stingscourger can be safely cut if Black-Blue control is not a big deal right now in the meta. And I don't know, it seems to be on the down, because the current meta right now is still like Skred Delver, a lot of mono blue Delver, Skred Delver, Kudatha Boros, and Inside Out combo. And blue black control actually isn't that favored against any of those. Like blue black control players will tell you they're favored, but a lot of times like the Delver gets the tempo draw. Same thing, the red blue Delver gets the kind of burn draw where the lightning bolts can actually finish off the black blue control. The Kudatha Boros, same thing. They're just pure value, can keep up the tempo with the black blue control and then just get in there for the damage. And then so black blue control just doesn't. Black blue control is good when like slivers, elves, Stompy, Bogles, both Bogles and Enchantress version. Those are the type of times I think blue black control really shines. I still am not convinced that it's that great of a matchup versus even like Affinity. So I think that blue black control is actually starting to go on the downturn again, especially if Tron is starting to see a lot more play. Then of course that Tron just eats up that deck because the value is just stronger in Tron. So I'm not convinced on Stingscourger needed to be in the sideboard. The Sparksmith still is a necessary evil. There's still a lot of creature-based decks where Sparksmith is basically your only way you're going to win the matchups. Very good versus like the Affinities, the Slivers, the Elves. Pyroblast I still have in here. I don't know if it just wants to be a more versatile card like Lightning Bolt, but it's a pretty powerful card. And Deathspark's just an all-star versus tons of matchups. I don't know if this also wants to be in here. There is a little bit of synergy between Deathspark and Song of Blood, because if you actually mill it, you can actually order... No, do you have to order? I can't remember if Song of Blood allows you to order when you use them. I thought it was allowing me to put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, and it was allowing me to order them. So if you can order them with Deathspark, then you can get back a Deathspark. So keep that in mind. I always do want to build a deck with the Song of Blood, as I think this makes a pretty cool unearth strategy to help self-mill, and then you can actually use it later on. But that's probably a bad little deck, because there are a few unearth cards for just one. There's a zombie that you can earth for just 1 mana. Yeah, I think it'll be 2 mana intensive at that point. But, yep. Flaring Pain is still good in here as a 1-of. Might increase to a 2-of if like the Marasatron is on the uptick, because Flaring Pain stops you from the Moment's Peace, and you'll see in a game where it just shuts down Circle Protection Red. Relic of Progenitus, same thing. It's really in here for the Marasatron matchup, as it just gets rid of the graveyard, and they can't do the recurring nonsense. So anyway, yeah, we'll just get into some replays here, and then we'll see where the stream goes. I don't know how long I'll be streaming today. I just think that every time I 5-0, we'll showcase it and then take some questions. Also didn't do a Market Monday for this week, so if you have any market-related questions, I'll be trying to check the chat and responding to those. But for now, let's just get on to some beautiful, beautiful games for the Pauper. I believe it will show me this. I played this on my laptop while helping customers today, so... actually, I wasn't that focused, so here we go. The first matchup is a matchup that I am not currently sideboarded for, so it's probably a bad matchup, to be honest. This is Burn, and Burn, you want Lightning Bolts for sure. So this is what I'm talking about. I love these hands. Even though it doesn't have a Cohort or a Mogg Raider, or not a Mogg Raider, Mogg Conscripts in the opening hand, this is where the Teetering Peak is just going to get value. So we have a turn 1 Mountain. And this is another reason I 5-0'd, is I won a lot of the die rolls and didn't mulligan a lot. Like, that is so important with a deck like Goblins. So Rift Bolt first turn guarantees that I get the Sledder. Of course, the Mogg Conscript comes out late there. And we can attack him for 3, get our opponent down to 13. So when you're racing Burn, this is exactly what you want to see. And this is also what you want to see when you're playing against Burn, is when the Burn player tries to play the control route. I don't think that that is a good route to go versus Goblins. Possibly versus maybe Stompy or some other traditional aggro decks. But I think Burn just wants to try to race, and they're very good at it with cards like Pyroblast of just purely racing. So if a card like Rift Bolt, is there just nothing else in my opponent's hand to suspend Rift Bolt? I think Rift Bolt's better for a later game to get the triggers off of when you have like a Thermal Alchemist out or something else, or the Firebrand Archer. So you usually want to like just use your mana. I guess that's fine though to use it with a Rift Bolt. Maybe that is the proper thing. But going on the Mogg Conscripts, I think, is a mistake here. I don't know. That's a tough one. But usually if you're Bird, you don't want to be playing the control matchup. Muldrotha. What's the new Muldrotha, not a rooster? Alright, so I'm going to attack in here. Firebrand Archer is not going to block. The Firebrand Archer is a bit scary because Firebrand Archer and the Thermal Alchemist are a way that they win this matchup. If they want to go a direct burn, they usually peter off with value. Like if they're going to play the control route, they're going to peter off and not be able to get the job done. But if they do have like Firebrand Archer or Thermal Alchemist to do some sustainable damage, they can actually play the control route okay. And so my opponent is going to go Chain Lightning on the Mogg Raider and just decide to sack it off. And yeah, just take the 1. I still feel in good shape, especially when my opponent cycled the Forgotten Cave and then didn't hit a land drop. So I don't know if that was a mistake too. So Mogg War Marshal's a pretty decent card to see here because we can sack it to the Goblin Sledder. But I decided to go with the cohorts here and attack in. And my opponent does decide to make this trade, which I will allow. I won't sacrifice it to get damage through because I think if my opponent is going to win, it's the Firebrand Archer that is going to get the job done. It's not going to be like burned to the face now. So unless my opponent has another additional Firebrand Archer, still though I think you hold out there. There's the Thermal Alchemist, which is slightly stronger in this matchup than the Firebrand. So I decided to go with the Mogg War Marshal here and attack in, and then we can eat the Mogg War Marshal to pump up the Goblin Sledder to kill the Thermal Alchemist is the play that I decided to go because my opponent still does have the 5 cards in hand. So I think the only way my opponent's going to win this matchup is by establishing Thermal Alchemist and Firebrand Archer, and then again playing the control out and dinging me every time. So if I can make that trade for basically 2/3 of a card, that's pretty good. Plus it's going to be untapped to have haste next turn. And my opponent just scoops it up, didn't find like a 3rd land or a way to deal with it, and that was that. Oh geez, it really shuts it down every time. Or do I have it loaded somewhere? Alright, so match number 2 was a little bit different, but again, I think my opponent made the wrong choice of trying to play a control route. So again, these Teetering Peaks, these 2 landers Teetering Peaks are so beautiful. They are exactly what you want because their 2-drop in goblins a lot of times isn't more powerful than your 1-drop. So say for example we had our 2-drop the other cohort, whatever that one's called, the one that gets +1/+1 if you have control of their red creature. It's just another Mogg Conscripts at that point is just as powerful in my opinion. Yeah, you are kind of sacrificing the 2 damage there, but this is just you're still getting out a creature that has the same power on board and getting value out of your land. So that's why I think the Teetering Peak is really, really vital for this strategy. And we'll go with the Teetering Peaks on the Mogg Conscripts and attack in, making the Thermal Alchemist not be able to block, and just going to dish off some damage, and decides to go the control route again with the Rift Bolt. Teetering Peak again on the Conscripts is great, and this allows us to go Cohort and Sledder, and my opponent cannot block again, and the best my opponent can hope for is just dishing off 1 damage with the Thermal Alchemist, and being down at a 12. So gotta love the double Teetering Peaks. And the Rift Bolt decides to, I believe, go add a creature again? Or did my opponent decide? Yes, to the Mogg Conscripts. So it's not where my opponent wants to be by using 3 damage spells to take care of a Goblin that has done 8 damage, by the way. So the Goblin Matron is going to allow me to go get another Bushwhacker. And it also allows me to pump up the Sledder. So if my opponent does want to make the trade with the Thermal Alchemist, I will allow it, other than Teetering Peak. Yeah, Teetering Peak does allow me to attack in with the Sledder. And if my opponent does have a removal spell, they're going to have to use it. Does not, which is really good news. Down to an 8. And we do kind of flood out here, but this is actually a pretty decent flood because it allows us to play everything. So here's the Song in Blood. The Song in Blood hits for 3. Everything's getting +3. And we can attack in here. And I'm pretty sure this is over, except my opponent decides to go for broke. And then has the Fire Blast. So it does the damage. is able to tap both lands for an Electrickery, which makes me sack 2 of my creatures to keep them alive. This is why I like the Sledders. It gets around one of the best sweepers in Pauper right now, which is Electrickery, and then is able to Fireblast away the Goblin Sledder. But that took 4 cards there for basically 4 cards, and then my opponent doesn't have any lands. We are at a top deck mode. Statistically, though, I have less lands to top deck than my opponent does, especially the one in the graveyard. And my opponent's actually running out of just sheer removal spells to really deal with these goblins. And if those aren't going to my face, then, you know, it's giving me time to just establish more. Opponent does top deck that mountain, though. That was kind of frustrating. And now down to a 5. And at this point, I feel very far ahead because it's just like, even Electrickery is just a 1-for-1. And now my opponent decides to go for the face. I don't know if, yeah, it's probably the right play. I don't know if, like, trying to just clear my board and then getting a Thermal Alchemist out is the right call or not. I think at this point, my opponent's just so far behind with that Fireblast. So, Mart of Ashes is just too late here. And no matter how my opponent blocks, we will get the lethal. Yep, just sacrificing it around and doing the 3 damage. So that's the burn matchup. It's not terribly, like, decision-ridden. It's pretty straightforward, but you can see that I think the decisions are more on my opponent's end than my end, and I'm not quite sure that I'm a fan of what my opponent did there. I think it could have been played a little bit better, rather than, or tried to race here. Because, I mean, what's the damage here? 3, 6, 9, there's 13... and then 13 plus another, there's 16 there with maybe some Thermal Alchemist triggers. I don't know. Maybe I was just too quick if my opponent... Yeah, maybe the Song and Blood there, there's no way around that. But sometimes with the burn, you just have to go for broke. All right, any questions I can catch up to before we get a game number 2? Muldrotha the Gravetide from Dominaria. Not just cast permanents, play permanents, so it works with lands. I'm going to check it out. So we'll go to Mythic Spoiler. Muldrotha. Alright. We'll throw it up here. Muldrotha Gravetide. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. So it doesn't get around Flash. So, oh, during each of your turns. Okay, I was thinking it. So yeah, that's actually pretty good. That's a sweet, definitely a sweet little commander. I don't know how playable it will be in Standard. Well, it's kind of like a Scarab God-ish card. Of course, the mana cost is a little more restrictive, having to have a black, a green, and a blue, and 3, but for a 6/6, and then you can play from your graveyard a permanent of each. That is pretty spicy. Right now, we still have Kaladesh that has a lot of artifacts that go to the graveyard, so there's a good one. We think about the even cards like the Renegade Map or the hell's the other card called right now? The Amulet. Traveler's Amulet. That's an artifact in the graveyard that can get recurred for value. There's a couple artifacts like the one that generates energy right now that actually would gain you life. It doesn't seem too terrible, energy and life when it comes into play, which could power cards like Servant the Conduit and the Aether Hub. And we also have blue, which that's instant or sorcery galore. Same with black with Vraska's Contempts over and over. That doesn't seem too terrible. And you could actually get a Planeswalker that wants to utilize its... Is there any Planeswalkers that are just one-time use at this moment? But something like Angrath that then goes down in value, and then if it's killed, you can play it again. That actually seems like a pretty potent card. So yeah, there's our little interjection from the games. Let's go on to the second match here, which is a little bit more of a nail-biter. So this is against the good old Affinity, and this is a hand. So here's where I'm judging a hand. I don't like it. You never want to keep a 4-lander, but the Goblin Matron and the Bushwhacker mean that you have 2 of your better cards. Basically, you have 2 Bushwhackers in your hand. The Teetering Peaks is like half a land because it's actually getting some value. So it's not a terrible hand. If you take away one of these lands, I'm covering the screen. You guys can't see me cover the screen. You take away this land, for example, and you're left with this 6. I think this is a definitely keepable hand. And so there's no need to mulligan it with the excess land. So I'm also on the draw, which is a little bit different. We get a Sledder, can lead off with a Frenzied Goblin. It's not bad. Of course, if we would have drawn a land there, it would have been terrible. But now with the Cohort, we're getting in for 3 with an Affinity that kept a really greedy hand that didn't get the second land. I believe Affinity still does run a 16 land, right? No, I think they... Yeah, I believe they... Maybe they run an 18. Do they run 2 of... I can't remember what they do. It's either 16... No, I think it is 16. Maybe they do run like 2 of the other Dark Steels or whatnot. But anyway, we can attack in here for 8 and get our opponent down to an 8 already. Quickly, my opponent, Desperation, goes for the Crack Clan Shaman, which is a bit tricky other than we do have the Goblin Sledder, which makes my opponent have to really play around this. And we'll Bushwhack, and then we can attack in and save everything here. Well, my opponent was going to have to sacrifice everything. I guess my opponent could block and sack and blow the entire board. So I possibly should have gone all out here. So block, and I think my opponent misplays here. Because sacrifices, and then I want to keep this alive. And I believe my opponent can sacrifice all of them to do 3 damage. But decides not to keep the 1 land. And then to keep the Crackland Shaman. No, that it kills itself, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. So then it's just lethal here because my opponent played it. But then does have the Galvanic Blast. Yeah, so Galvanic Blast happens here. Alright, so let's rewind there. So I had a Frogmite and a Crackland and another artifact. And then was able to sack them all to do 2 damage. I should have sacked the Frogmite there as well. Yeah, and then I wouldn't have done any damage. It would have just been a wipe, and my opponent would still have a Galvanic Blast and no damage. So yeah, that was definitely... No, because then I could have sacked a response and then had one up. Had one even bigger. But I don't know if that would have mattered at that point. Alright, so we're Goblin Matron for the Bushwhacker here, and that just wins the game. The match number 2 gets a little bit more tricky. I think that I kept a 1-lander and got really punished for it, so it's on the opposite end of the spectrum. With this. So I had a mulligan, yeah, and then kept a 1-lander, and then threw that to the bottom, and we are definitely digging for land, and I believe I don't find the land is what ends up happening for quite a while. Usually 1-landers are decent in this particular match, as it is... You still have action every turn. You can still cast a 1-drop, and it means you have gas for later on when you do find that second and third land. But this is the tough matchups, is when they have the Thought Casts. And this is the Crack Clan version, so they are running the Ichor Wellsprings. I'm not sure if all affinities are on that. I think that they're not. Like that was a main board Crack Clan Shaman. And there's definitely times in the meta where that's actually superior. But it is one less slot for, like, what is it, the Gear Seekers or the 3/2 flyer with Affinity. So here I just know I'm dead here. My opponent, though, is giving me a way to win this game. See, they allowed me to draw back in by not being aggressive. And now I've got the Sparksmith. And to be honest, like, with the Sparksmith and this amount of mana, I'm actually in pretty good shape. Because now I can kill all the Carapace Forgers that come out. Especially since my opponent doesn't decide to equip a Germ onto a Forger. So I take the damage here, but this is going to allow me... I'm not too concerned until I get down to like the 8 damage range. So here I can kill off a Forger and just leave back some blockers. But I believe this, yeah, the Shaman comes out here, and I'm just dead from the Shaman. As it's going to wipe my board, I'm going to be too far behind. So we'll let this just run out. But again, I think that Affinity, you need to be aggressive versus Goblins. You can't let it build up, because there's just a few cards I can top deck out of to either overwhelm and then throw all the damage on one person that actually does get through. There's a lot of scenarios where I can just draw out of it. But yep, that's going to cause the scoop, I think, somewhere around here. Yep. And... no, I do decide to just cast 2 of them. Force my opponent to sacrifice another creature here. But if Affinity is still very efficient, yeah, sacks the Chromatic Star, which draws a card. So Affinity is still a very efficient deck in Pauper. Pauper is starting to turn out a little bit like Modern, where it feels like you don't have enough of a sideboard to deal with all the shenanigans. So you take Red, for example. I kind of want Molten Rain or Pillage in the sideboard, probably Molten Rain for the Tron matchup. You definitely want some sort of Artifact Hate in the sideboard for Affinity. You want the Pyroblast for Delver. You want ways to deal with the Graveyard or Moment's Peace, and it starts adding up to where it's like you don't feel like you have a sufficient enough sideboard to deal with all of what Pauper can throw at you. But the good news is, like, that I was discussing this with Zach, it's like, well, none of the matchups really feel like you're just dead. You still feel like you can play it out. There are so many matchups in that trash format we call Modern that you just sit down and like, yep, can't beat this one. It's over. Or like I said, the very last Modern league I went in, I went 3-2, so it's not like I did a bad job in the Modern. And all the matchups were decided. All 5 of my matchups, they're all combo-based decks. It was like 4 Storms and a Through the Breach or some sort of variance of combo like that. All 5 of the matchups were decided if I Stony Silenced or Rest in Peace. And it doesn't even feel like playing Magic. Whereas, you know, sometimes like, I need my sideboard cards to really punish. But that's what Pauper is punishing. Not really just scooping completely. So, anyway, we'll go on to, if that makes sense, to the chat. So, we'll go on to this game number 3. I think this is another one where you love the 2 landers. We are very quick here. We got the Sparksmith, which is key to taking out early Frogmites or Carapace. And I believe my opponent plays very improperly here. I don't know if they could play differently. But I decided to go with Sparksmith rather than the Mudbrawler Cohort, because this means that the turn, they either put a Frogmite out this turn or a Carapace, and I kill either one of them. So, and that's what my opponent does, just goes for the Carapace, so I just decide to kill it, and then throw out a Cohort, and now I feel very, very far ahead. There's a card that Affinity does use, especially this version. I don't think this is yeah, it's got to be an ATOG version with the way they do this, but again, the Sparksmith's just going to get tons of value, killing off a couple Frogmites. I love to see this play when my Frogmite blocks the Cohort, because you got to think of Affinity sort of like slivers. You just need to take care of their tribe. And in this case, their tribe is just as many Affinity cards as possible. It slows them down from chaining off a lot of things like Thoughtcast. So even like a Thoughtcast here is going to be a little more expensive, and they can't be doing what they want to be doing. And I believe my opponent just scoops it up. Not sure why. Maybe they didn't have any action. But a bunch of Mirror Enforcers, or you can't generate the red. Maybe a bunch of Galvanic Blasts. Scoops it up, but we had a really, really good hand here. This next turn I probably would Bushwhack. And then swing in, and that would be 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right there. So my opponent would have to have a way to deal with it. And then if they did deal with it the next turn, we have another Bushwhacker. So far 2-0 with this one. And we'll have an update to the chat, since apparently I'm the most terrible person with chat. Yep, we'll get to Dominaria spoilers here in a bit here. Just want to run through the Pauper and see where we can go with this. The next matchup here is Delver. And Delver is typically a pretty easy matchup unless they get this particular draw. So I decided to mull that one lander because there wasn't a lot of action. There was a lot of high-cost cards. This one's I have a Scry, so I'm going to keep it. So I can go through basically another card to try to find a land. Did not find it, so I scry it to the bottom. And it is kind of a weak little start, which is a Frenzied Goblin. We start with a Preordain. And the Scred Delver is definitely the version that's Kudatha Boros is probably the toughest matchup for Goblins, followed by Scred Delver. Of course, there are some non-tier 1 decks that are a little bit tougher for Goblins to deal with, but usually I'm not going to worry about something that's not tier 1 when evaluating metas. Alright, so we'll attack in with the Frenzied Goblin, which gets in for some good damage. I'm feeling actually, since we found that other land, I'm feeling actually pretty good here. Especially when the Spell Strike wasn't able to counter anything. Opponent decides to go for the Ninja. Ninja's going to be tough without Lightning Bolts. Would have been a huge blowout here if I had a Lightning Bolt, though. Bolt the Ninja, doesn't get in for anything. Doesn't have any... doesn't get a draw here. And I guess would have a Delver back up here, but the Delver doesn't want to block at that point. However, again, this was we're testing this out without running any sort of Lightning Bolt or Reckless Abandon type cards. All right, so here we're gonna end up sacrificing the Mogg War Marshal. Oh no, I'm not, because I'm keeping it up to block. Probably should have there though, to kept it up and just went for my opponent trying to get card advantage and then having a haste or a hasted token rather than a non-hasted token. But finding the Augur of Bolas here is just pretty much going to be the end of me. I'm too far behind. I at least do get a Frenzied Goblin out. Don't pay the Echo cost. We can go with a Cohort here and at least attacking with these. And then if my opponent decides to block this Goblin, yeah, we can just sacrifice it to one of the unblocked. So still not feeling too far behind. My opponent's down to an 8. And doesn't really have a ton of pressure. The Delver still doesn't flip. So far so good. And decide to make this trade. In hindsight, I'm not sure this is the right play. But I didn't see myself getting through an Augur, and slowing down the card draw from my opponent is key. The Matron gets counterspelled, sure, not that big of a deal. A lot of times you just want to let the Matron go through and then counterspell whatever I get off of that is the better play, because the 1/1's not that great. I don't know if I agree with my opponent here, but there's the dreaded Gush, as it's just going to give my opponent some insane card advantage. And I feel very far behind at this point. The Arsonist gets countered. Probably should have played this the other way around, since I knew the Spell Source Bite was in the hand. And just got like a Mogg War Marshal countered. Yeah, I don't know if that other way around wouldn't have mattered. And my opponent does block. I was hoping that my opponent didn't, and I could get into there for some free damage, fearing their Augur Bolas dying. But of course, that's not that big of a deal. And the second ninja comes in here, draws back up the hand, and at this point I know I'm pretty much toast. So, designed a card today, if you follow me on Twitter, of what I would like in Pauper. If you're interested in that, you can we'll go look at it here in a second on my Twitter. I'm so sick of Ponder, Preordain, Augur of Bolas, what are some other scry-based cards, that I really think that Wizards should print something that punishes looking at the top card of your library. So Augur of Bolas looks at the top 3 cards. Of course, I'd like a little goblin that dealt a damage for each time you peeked at the top card of your library. I think that'd be a neat little... I'd actually like to do a whole series of them. One for white, one for green, one for black, and one for red. So the green one could be like you put a +1/+1 counter every time they peek at the top card of their library. Black could be they discard a card, or I don't know, or you get to look at the top card of their library and decide to put it on the bottom. I think that'd actually be better. And then, so kind of like a Fate Steel effect. And white, I don't know, white probably could prevent them from looking unless they paid like a tax version. But anyway. It's because of this nonsense, not a rooster. I'm so sick of every Pauper deck having... Preordain's like 45% of the meta. Augur Bolas is like 35% of the meta. It goes in such a variety of decks. And I think that, I mean, put it in perspective. Why the hell don't I or red players get... So Goblins, for example. Why can't I get a 1/3, even a 1/1? A 1/1 for one in a red that says, look at the top 3 cards of my library, reveal a Goblin card from among them and put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in order. Like, this is even more versatile than the card that I'm suggesting. Like, blue, I don't know why the original designers of Magic, or at least for the first part of Magic that kind of set the framework, just had such an obsession over blue that Pauper has one of the most aggressive blue or creatures. It's blue. They have one of the best value creatures. It's blue. They have arguably the best spells in the form of fixing and just hard counters in blue. And it's just, I'm okay with it if they are going to push some of the other stuff in other colors. Right now, Pauper is pretty balanced because all of the colors do see a lot of play. I'd say that red probably is the second best, but it's mainly just because Lightning Bolt exists, and there's a few other cards like Electricity that keep a lot of the green decks in check. But white, I guess white sees some play from time to time. Maybe white is still the most underrepresented in Pauper as well. I don't know if someone would actually break it down, but Call of the Boros has actually played quite a bit. So there is a good balance there, but it still seems that blue is starting to eke ahead. We hadn't seen a deck get above 10% of the meta share for quite a while in Pauper, and now Delver, if you take both the variants together, they're pushing 20%. And then I got to think of all the black-blue decks, and a lot of the Tron decks that are actually blue decks these days, that are utilizing more of the blue payoff spells and things like that. So, I don't know. I think it's a time that I'm okay with Ponder and Preordain and Brainstorm existing in the format. In fact, my favorite deck runs Brainstorm in it, in Pauper. And Brainstorm's a key card. If they were to ban it or get rid of it out of Pauper, it would be unplayable. But at the same time, I think that we need some other cards. They pushed Augur of Bolas down to a common, which has really made these sort of Delver decks and even some of the black-blue controls, or even other control variants. There's a red-blue control, Flurry of the Horns deck. All of them, an inside-out combo uses Augur of Bolas just to put out a creature that plays this massive wall versus aggro decks, replaces itself. It actually does have synergy with cards like Ghostly Flicker type effects, Graveyard Recursion, and even like the Ninja. So I think that we're a little too... The pendulum has swung a little too much in the favor of blue at the moment, and I'd like to see some pushed cards for the other. I don't think the Eternal Masters 25 actually did enough. All right, Zombie says he's got a Pauper deck for you, a mono blue SMORC Smork deck I've been brewing. We'll check it out after. We'll get to a Q&A part. Again, we can talk about spoilers, we can talk about finance, we can talk about whatever you want. I'm going to try to get through this Pauper 5-0 finish here. And I'll quit rambling so we can get through it. This is, like I said, Delver typically is easy when they don't have the tempo draw and you don't mulligan. So here is the bane of existence to Delver, which is called Death Spark. Death Spark and Mogg Raider have really good synergy because it allows you to kind of set up your Death Sparks, and the vast majority of cards in Mono Blue Delver still do have 1 toughness. So Fairy Miscreant, Delver of Secrets, and the Spellsplitter Sprite to have 1 toughness, and if you can keep those in check, your opponent's not going to beat you with Augurs and Ninjas. So anyway, this is a very keepable hand. Of course, the Teetering Peaks again, and we can lead off with the Conscripts and Teetering Peaks draw. So here, I think I get put in kind of a big decision with the Delver Secrets. So here's my decision. All right, we can Death Spark the Delver Secrets. We can be done with it. It can be... Don't have to worry about that threat. Or we can go Teetering, or we can go land, drop a Sparksmith if we draw an untapped land, or we can go Mogg Raider and just attack in for 2 and set up for further Death Spark. So it's all draw dependent here, and draw Foundry Street Denizen, but I decided to go the Denizen because I think that this hand has the potential of just racing a Delver. And I don't know in hindsight if that's the right thing to do or not. Typically, if you have the opportunity to kill Delver, you go for it. But because it's a very pivotal... this is another card that just splashes it for no reason. There will be like Turbo Fog decks that throw in Delver so that you have to deal with a threat. So you just can't side out all your creature removal because the Delver can get the job done. So again, a lot of times that's the right play. With the Foundry Street Denizen though, I'm like, man, this is a pretty quick hand for my opponent. Even if this flips, my opponent's going to have to find some ways to back it up. Decides to keep some mana open, attacks in for 3. I do have the Pyroblast too. That was something that I'm like, okay, I can kill the Delver if needs be. But so here, draw another mountain, which is great because this allows me to go the Sparksmith, and which is really good because my opponent, it does have the counter spell. This was a daze, but we decided to Pyroblast the counter spell so we can get the Sparksmith out to then kill any subsequent Augur Boluses or Delvers. At that point, we can get our life total down to 1 against blue Delver because there's not a way for them to finish us off after that except for creatures. So Preordain happens. My opponent attacks him for 3, probably keeping up some sort of Spellsplitter Sprite mana, and still looking really good here. Goblin Arsonist is a great card. My opponent decides to go Spell Sprite, and I Sparksmith it. I'm like, whatever. I could have Death Sparked it in response, but this gets the Goblin Arsonist out, gets the Foundry Denizen up. We can go the Mogg Raider, which is good, and then attack in with everything. I can also set up the Mogg Raider here, so I'm going to Death Spark the Delver, and then crack the Delver to the Goblin Arsonist to then pump up the Conscripts up another damage. I thought that was worthwhile. Now I'm really far ahead. Not too worried about a Fairy Miscreant, as my opponent's down to 6. Yes, we do need to draw a creature for the Mogg Conscripts, but this, of course, that's what sets up the Death Spark, which was the ability for the Mogg Raider to then put it underneath the Death Spark. The Spell Sprite comes out. I don't know what this is about because my opponent knows I have the Death Spark, and then we can kill it, or the Sparksmith and the Death Spark, yeah. So nothing gets countered. We attack in for 5. No, this is lethal here, right here. Yeah, I sack everything, and it's lethal down to 0. So that is the Delver match. Pretty self-explanatory. We can go on to the Tron. These get a little more tricky. Game 1 is usually in your favor because Tron has a lot of sideboard cards they need to bring in. Keep in mind, Tron does really well against the other slower decks. Aggro is its weakness until the sideboard comes in. So you a lot of times do get that free win. And so, first of all, I can love to see the 2-landers and cohorts. You can notice that I'm winning a lot of these matchups just because it's actually drawing the percentage of lands that I should be. Not going to 40 or 45 or 50%. If you missed my early, when I started streaming, I was ranting. The whole reason this deck got built was if MTGOs is going to be 40 to 45% lands every game, I might as well run cards that can actually use that excess mana like the Goblin Matron. So anyway, we will attack in here for 4. My opponent does have Tron though next turn, so that's a little bit scary. But a lot of times my opponent doesn't have like the main board electricities or ways to deal with all of my swarm here. And the best thing my opponent can do is just cast a couple. Oh, it doesn't have Tron yet. I thought they did. No, okay. I guess it is Expedition Map for another one. All right, so here goes a Bushwhacker, and this is lethal right here. -3, in fact. So that is how quick the Goblin decks can be. Game 2 got a little more rough start. And the sideboard card for Tron definitely came in. So you never want to see a no-lander into a 3-lander. That's pretty bad. And this actually isn't the best start. The Cohort was a very good start, though. But it appears you never want to see 2 Tron lands by Tron because that means they can have natural Tron, which is annoying. But the Cohort into Cohort's good. Down to 16. We're in great shape. However, the Ancient Stirrings finds the Urza's Mine, which Tron has been assembled. And Circle Protection red is like unbeatable unless we sideboard in. I didn't even think about it. Sideboarding in Flaring Pain against this particular deck. This is like, what sort of Tron is this version? The Ancient Stirrings Expedition Map heavy. So they're going out all Tron as quickly as possible. We do see Rolling Thunder, so I don't think this is like the creature-based Tron. It might have a few of them, like the Wretched Griff. But it definitely isn't the Muldrifter Tron or the Pulsa Marasa Tron. It doesn't appear to be. Usually they don't run as many like Ancient Stirrings and Ways to Dig as this version of Tron. So there's like 3 or 4, probably no, there's even more than 4 versions of Tron. There's probably 5 or 6 versions of Tron you'll see. You'll see like Stonehorde Dignitary, like a heavier on the white Tron. You'll see, of course, the creature-based Tron and the Pulsa Marasa Tron. There's like a Dinrova Horror Tron. Lots of ways to deal with it, but the Rolling Thunder clears the board and I scoop it up as there's no way to come back from the Rolling Thunder. And then the last match, or the last game versus Tron, is kind of funny because I'm trying to figure out what my opponent actually kept here. Snap kept, by the way, just like it was the quickest keep ever, like keep. And usually that means they have the natural Tron. They don't need to look at the rest of the cards. Start off with a very good hand. Again, the Teetering Peak into the 1-drop, but we do find the 2-drops to attack in with a Foundry Denizen. We have the Bushwhacker next turn. We can attack in for a lot. No first turn play. My opponent has the Tower and the Mine. The Teetering Peak can come down here on the Arsonist, and then we'll go the Bushwhacker, which kicks them all, and attacking for an insane amount of damage on turn number 3. And opponent goes down to a 6 and has Tron and nothing. So what's the scenario where they have? They might have like Ancient Stirrings in hand. They might have, but what was it? No, none of the Prophetic Prisms. None of the, what's the other prism that filters the lens, the prismatic lens. No of these spheres or stars. And I mean, at this point, we just there's so many. I'm sure my opponent had a lot of outs and then just drew like Electrickery, Rolling Thunder, Ancient Stirrings, and it had nothing to do with their Tron. It's needed some colored lands. Again, this is the more greedy version of Tron that is trying to use ways to assemble it rather than having a lot of what I'm assuming the tap lands in here. I don't know. I don't know what version this is, but you can kind of see how cool the good old Song of Blood is. Oh, do I go for Goblin Matron here? I thought this is when I went for the Song of Blood, but I mean, this is just lethal. And last but not least, we have another Tron version. This was a much harder win. Again, game number 1 is usually quite easy against Tron before they bring in their hate cards. Have to mulligan all the way down to a 3-lander well, a 6 down to a 3-lander, which you don't want to see. The Bushwhacker's great, the Song of Blood's great. We need to never see another land, though. We get off a nice little start with the 2-drops here. And the Prismatic Lens, Expedition Map. My opponent's going to be assembling Tron quickly. We get another Foundry Street Denizen, decide to Bushwhack here to really dish off some nice damage. What is that, 11 damage? So my opponent's already down to a 9. And feeling really good here. I'm like, okay, my opponent's not going to have anything main board to stop this. So probably shouldn't have done this play here. Went for the Song of Blood. And it finds all 4, and this is why I like this card. Attacking creatures get +4/+0. So we're going to attack in here for, what is it? So 22 damage. But a main board Moment Piece screws that plan up. And do not get to dish off lethal. In fact, there is a flashbackable Moments Piece. However, my opponent is down to basically halving the Moments Piece every turn, I would assume. Yeah, even with like a Mogg War Marshal here, it's Moments Piece or die because we can sack the Mogg War Marshal. I think this gives him +2/+0 anyway. So this is lethal on board here. Yeah, perfect 9. So the Moment Piece has to happen. And flashes it back. So at least that's out of the way. Still feeling pretty good except for Tron is assembled. Sometimes though Tron does have really nothing to do with it. A Mole Drifter is definitely not the card my opponent wants. They'd want like a Electrickery, or I don't know if there's even is a main board Electrickery. But I think this is going to be too much for my opponent to handle here. And decide to actually pay. Now my opponent does kind of a weird play here, and does do main board Electrickery as well. But this is where Electrickery is pretty bad versus Goblins, because Goblins I can just keep everything alive. And I lose like 1 creature, 2 creatures here if you count the Mogg War Marshal. But definitely my opponent should have waited till the attack phase. Or even wait till after the blockers. There is no point just doing that right there, because this is now lethal. Whereas, I don't know if my opponent could have played around stuff, and then I try to, block something, and I, like, try to eat something in response. And then the Electrickery probably wouldn't have mattered. But, that's the power of Goblins for you with two Moments Pieces. And the second game was very frustrating, because we get to deal with two of the cards that are very... So again, not the best hand, but I mean, on the play, if we don't draw lands, it's okay. But of course, we drew a land. I think that was the difference of winning and losing this match for sure, is drawing that 4th land. Opponent also gets the Prismatic Lens out very quickly, and we drew another land after that. So you never want to see 5 with Goblins, especially when they're not Teetering Peaks. And it's pretty much too far out of our reach, I'd even say, even with the most incredible draws here. Cohort's not one of those. So we'll just spend our mana for the Goblin Matron. And there's a Hydroblast that came in from the sideboard. So that takes care of the tutoring it up. I don't know if I agree with that play. Again, usually counter what Goblin Matron gets. Don't really worry about the Goblin Matron itself. It's just a 1/1. Alright, tacking in, going down to 16. The Song of Blood can get us back in if our opponent does Dirtle, though. But here's where, I believe it's this turn, that we just scoop it up. Because there's no way we can beat it. Nope, not quite yet. You'll see the good old card that is coming. So the Cohort comes down. Again, this is how well Goblins can recover with like a Song of Blood. There's potentially 4 creatures that can get +4/+0 with Song of Blood. So that could just be lethal by itself. A Doomblade comes down. Still feeling okay with this matchup at this point. Expedition map, of course, is gonna... Oh, this assembles Tron. There we go. Now I know I'm pretty much screwed with it, with Tron assembled. The Swirling Sandstorm just completely wipes the board. And now we're having to dig out. But a Reckless Bushwhacker and a Song in Blood by itself could actually do 6 damage, theoretically. Drawing the 6th land is not where we want to be. Yeah, this game was actually a lot closer than I gave it credit for. Even by flooding out. And did I mulligan with this? No. Did I keep her mulligan? I can't remember what I did at the start of this. But, yep. At least we have plenty of lands for the Denrova Horror not to give us issues. But still with only 1 card in hand, yeah, I guess Forbidden Alchemy can then flash back. And throws away Flame Slash and Urza's Mind and a Mole Drifter, so it's got to be better than a Mole Drifter. Which there are few and far between cards that are actually greater than Mole Drifter, and you'll see why. Or not yet. Mnemonic Wall gets back Hydroblast. I don't know what that's all about. I think getting something... that's fine, I guess. Because it can take care of anything. Don't you love it how I forget how games go down? I just played this, and I actually forgot how this one did, but... Another land. Yeah, definitely not where I want to be. But at least this game gave us information because our opponent should be casting a Circle Protection white here, or Circle Protection red. So I brought in I brought in relics, but I brought in Flaring Pain as well. But sometimes you don't even want to play out games when you're too far behind. You don't want to show a Flaring Pain. I don't know if showing a Relic of Progenitus is the right call either. I don't know if my opponent can do anything against it, though. Might make my opponent... Oh, yeah, Rolling Thunder to the face. I actually didn't see the Circle Protection in this particular matchup until this game. But I did bring in the Flaring Pain because of the Moment's Pieces. And here is the hilarious game. Never toy with your opponents. Never, ever, ever, ever toy with your opponents. Because unless my opponent just didn't see the win right out. So, first turn Goblin Cohort. This is another great hand. Great start. We can go the Mogg Raider and Goblin Arsonist and attacking for 2. And we have the War Marshal combo with the Raider here. If I even want to go this route. Do I end up going that? Yeah, I do want to go this route. So I end up sacrificing, pumping these up, attacking in. And that way, if we draw into like a Reckless Bushwhacker... Or I want to go for the Song of Blood here. Because this could just win the game. Just right out. But Rest for the Weary. And a Lightning Bolt on the Mogg Raider. And I decided to go for the Cohort. Yeah... That's probably the right play. Could I have gone? Let's back up here. I had 4 creatures out. Could I have done 22 damage if I even hit 4 creatures with it? So that'd be 5, 10, 15, and then no, that's why I didn't go for it. Because it'd be just 15, it'd be 21. Yeah, I'd be 1 off. And that'd be with hitting Song of Blood perfectly. So that's Fatal, this deck is actually not for sale at the moment. You can throw it up if you want, though. I've got the link in the description. There is a link in the video description for this game. Or for this deck. So anyway, attack in here, get my opponent down to 11. The rest for the worry, of course, gain the 8 life. Still feeling okay. Tron hasn't been assembled quite yet. Swirling Sandstorm still a ways off. A Hardcast Mold Drifter is fine. We have the Song in Blood to push through. We have a Bushwhacker here as well. And decide to go for the Song of Blood. Only gets +2/+0 here. And we get attacking with everything. So I'm kind of like, eh. Probably the Bush or the Matron would have been better play here. Remember the Bushwhacker. This is still... It would have allowed us to attack with the Conscripts, though. Yeah, that would have been the better play. Might have been able to just outright win it there if I would have gone with the Bushwhacker. Oh, the Bushwhacker's only given +1/+0. But yeah, but there'd be 2 more things attacking. And decide just to attack in here, or go for the Goblin Matron, and then attack in, because that allows us to go for the Conscripts. And here is, I believe, a Moment's Peace. A Pulsa Marasa getting back Mold Drifter. That's correct. Still, though, my opponent is in range of the one-shot. This match goes on for quite a while, and you'll see what I'm talking about here. So, my opponent goes, Forbidden Alchemy, doesn't take the Mnemonic Wall. And finds the Mold Drifter. I believe Tron gets assembled this turn. Can't remember how many copies of Pulsa Marasa they run, because that's why I was like, why didn't they go the Mnemonic Wall to try to have the recurring 6 life per turn? But still, I'm forcing my opponent to respond each turn for like Moment Peace type cards. Tron gets assembled, and there's a Circle Protection Red. So my opponent, you'll see here, Circle Protection Red, I'm not going to scoop it up because I have a 1-outer. I have the Flaring Pain I can draw into. And there's a really questionable play that my opponent does right here in a few turns. And again, I'm just attacking in to force my opponent to go through the motions. You never know. You want to allow your opponent to screw up in Magic. And so even though I know this is fogged, also you want them to spend mana because they can chain off a lot of stuff per turn. So there's a Forbidden Alchemy. See, my opponent does not take the Rolling Thunder. All right, pause it up here. We have Rolling Thunder states, Rolling does X damage as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. I'm at 18 life. I'm down to 16 life with the Mold Drifter attack. My opponent can generate 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 damage right there with a Rolling Thunder. I don't know why you wouldn't take the Rolling Thunder here. Any Tron land is a win. 2 attacks in with a Mold Drifter is a win with the Rolling Thunder. However, I don't even know what my opponent took over the Rolling Thunder. Doesn't have one of the walls to get it back. Again, we'll just keep going in for the motions here, attacking in. At this point, my opponent does start to get a little bit concerned about the time clock because the Circle Protection Red is a pain in the butt with, you know, going through all this nonsense each turn, which I admit is kind of a dickish move. But again, I think you still need to give your opponent the opportunity to screw up, mess up, not see it, and, you know. Plus, I still want my opponent to spend the mana because there is a lot of cards that can chain off. So, was that a Tron? No, it's just another land my opponent drew into. Still don't know what is in my opponent's hand. I'm actually thinking my opponent took a Hydroblast. And you're going to start doing the Circle Protection here at the first. And we'll see it here in a second where we draw the Flaring Pain. And Flaring Pain's great because it's got flashback. Very underrated card. That's what I really do like about Pauper. It seems like for every answer, there's like an answer to an answer. So every threat, there's an answer, and to every answer, there's an answer to an answer. So in this case, the Circle Protection Red just completely stops what I am doing. It's going to be nearly impossible for me to win this without a card that can then prevent damage from being prevented. So that's what's going on at the moment. My opponent's got me down 12. Again, if my opponent would have taken the Rolling Thunder, it would just be over here. A Ghostly Flicker allows my opponent to flicker a Prism and a Mole Drifter, drawing more cards. Unfortunately, my opponent's just not getting really anything here. And I'm still going to play it out. Like, I was tempted a bunch of times to just scoop here. However, my opponent decides to start utilizing his clock a little bit better by using a Moment's Peace. I believe my opponent's got another Moment's Peace in hand, too. I guess we can get to what other questions I got going here. After this, we can talk about some Dominaria spoilers, as well as what I'd like to see in Pauper. Possibly play a game or two. I don't know how long I'm going to be around tonight. I want to get on to. There's a Flaring Pain. All right, so we draw the Flaring Pain, and I'm worried my opponent's got 2 counter spells in hand. But seeing through a lot of my opponent's deck list, I don't know if there's a room for a ton of Hydroblast type cards. I hope my opponent would spend some more mana, but I think my opponent has enough to spend it multiple times over. There's the Hydroblast with the Flaring Pain backup. And that wins the game. And that was a 5-0 finish for the new version of Pauper. For everyone just joining the stream, we'll look at the deck real quickly. And I'll go over one small little deck tech again for it. So this version of Goblins was kind of a tilt. That's what I should call this. Goblins on tilt. Because I was so sick of drawing 40 to 45% lands per match. And you did see some matchups that I absolutely did not draw that. I was actually getting good draws. Getting reasonable 2, 3, 4 lands per game, which is exactly what an 18 land deck should be doing. Shouldn't be getting stuck on 1, shouldn't be drawing 5 or 6. But however, I wanted to make this particular deck to be able to utilize the excess mana through the Grandma Goblin to be able to go get another Goblin Bushwhacker. So in a sense, this is kind of like Pauper's versions of 8-Whack. And so this was the big difference, is cutting Lightning Bolts and Reckless Abandons, throwing in Song of Bloods and Goblin Matrons, adding in some Frenzied Goblins, and going up the full count of the Mogg Conscripts and the Goblin Cohorts. The other inclusion was the Teetering Peaks, which allowed us to actually get some use out of the lands, and I think that they were very good in those matchups. The sideboard I didn't change at all from my more recent versions, which is Deathspark, Pyroblast, Flaring Pain, Sparksmiths, the Stingscourgers, which I explained at the very first of this, were kind of unnecessary now unless you still are worried about the Gurmag Angler, and the Goblin Caves is great versus Electrickery, and then Relic of Progenitus is a very versatile card versus a lot of different flashback type decks. So anyway, that's the gist of the deck. It went 5-0 pretty well, and something I can definitely recommend right now in the meta, because I don't think bolts probably do want to be in here, like I've said, but I don't know if they want to be in the sideboard, to be honest. I think in this particular meta, you want to go as many creatures as possible to try to. You want to focus on your game plan and not really focus on your opponent's game plan. The bolts are extremely good versus mono-black control, and they're extremely good versus black-blue control, because it gives you range that your creatures won't have in the later portions of the game. That's why early on I was having a lot of success with Reckless Abandon, when I was seeing a lot of mono-black matchups and a lot of black-blue matchups. But however, since I've seen a lot less of those in the Pauper meta in the last couple of days, weeks, I think that going over to a full 40 creatures like I did here is a pretty good move, as it just allows you to continue to apply pressure. Even decks like Stompy or even Bogles that can try to race you and a lot of times just lose to a 16-point backswing with like a Bushwhacker or a Song of Blood. So, I don't know. Pretty sweet little deck. Highly recommend it. I'll try to have more of these in stock. I don't know how many Matrons I have in stock at the moment. But you can definitely go order these Pauper decks from roguedeckbuilder.com. Link in chat there. Speaking of which, I guess we'll use some shameful self-promotion or shameless self-promotion right now. If you would like Pauper decks, but you do not have the funds to buy a Pauper deck, we are doing this good old thing called Bulk for Bling, and I'll show it here on the screen. This is something that is twofold. You get two amazing things out of this. One, you make Zach's life hell. And whenever you can make Zach's life hell, it's always a win for humanity. Zach will assorts the majority of the cards here at Gonro Games, and here he comes running in. Because we just barely got done sorting through a lot of collections we just got in. And now Zach, he even like did a little bit of, oh, I'm done for a while. I can actually relax. And so we can actually put an end to that and make it so Zach has to continue to sort cards. And by doing that is you send us your bulk. I will pay pretty much a market price for it, $3 per 1,000 of bulk. Please try not to include basic lands unless they're older basic lands, and or don't include those tip cards. I usually will deduct those if they come in like a high quantity, but I also will reimburse the shipping if you send it ground. So if you send it in a reasonable fashion, use the best way to send bulk is to actually do USPS and then do the boxes that have the flat rate, because then you can stuff those full. Just throw a lot of the boxes that come with Magic. I believe like the gift boxes, the old gift boxes will fit in a large, or just any other box. You can just actually chuck it in there if you secure it properly. Your bulk cards, and then send me an email of how many you're sending, and that way I can verify with the user, and then we can send you some store credit that you can use towards sealed product or rogue deck builder playmats or whatnot, and that will help us get the bulk that we need to make a move on building more pauper decks and selling singles, and it will get you the bling of the rogue deck builder playmats or challenger decks or booster boxes, pauper decks, all that goodies. So there's my little plug for rogue deck builder at the moment. Alrighty, so on to your questions for what we are talking about. If anyone has some questions, then you can definitely at me to give the nice little red box around it so I can see if you have a question. We can talk Pauper, we can talk the finance, we can talk Dominaria spoilers, or we can just chill for a bit and talk about some of the things I've got going on. Definitely have a more high production video. Can I review? Yeah, sure, Zombie. Throw it up in the... I've just moderated you, Zombie. Please don't abuse it. Yeah, but throw up the link in the chat and we can look at your pauper deck. And I can give you some tips of what I would do with the current pauper meta. One of these days, too, it didn't work out last time that I had scheduled the pauper metagame. I believe pauper metagame's link is in one of my live streams of the past. Definitely go check out the pauper metagame YouTube channel. Very, very wise gentleman about the current pauper meta, and what the whole reason I even got in on Goblins is Bird, that's his nickname, the pauper meta, actually suggested that Goblins might be a good aggressive strategy to play right now in the meta. It took me 3 leagues, 3-2-4-1, and then a 5-0 to finally 5-0 with it, so it was a very good win percentage. And then, of course, I've adjusted that deck onto the various versions, and this is my second 5-0 with Goblins. So hopefully this one actually shows up in the 5-0 versions. All right, so anyway, so definitely go check out Bird's channel. I had a scheduled live stream and Q&A with pauper metagame, except I was sick for 2 weeks and I just wasn't feeling up to it. So we chatted for a while, though. Really, really awesome person. I will try to have him on again soon so we can talk about the pauper meta in depth. And this will be good for these type of questions. All right, let's pull this up here. Smork deck. Okay, so this is a Mistcloak Herald Slitherblade. Okay, so this is a unblockable deck for Ninja with the Tandem Lookout. Tandem Lookout, I don't know, is the right place for this particular deck. I think you can get through with more card advantage going the typical fairy route. I know that at that point you're getting very similar to the Delver, but Mistblade Shinobi actually has a lot of synergy with the Spellstutter Sprite and the let me get this focused up more. Has a lot of synergy with the Spell Sorcerer's Rite and the Fairy Miscreant. So Fairy Miscreant Spell Sorcerer's Rite might want to be in here instead of something like, I understand the 2 unblockable, but a lot of times the 1 flyers are just as good as being unblockable as the Mistcloak Herald. I've also done a rogue theme with the Slitherblade before, because the Slitherblade is a rogue, and then there is some rogue tribals that are really fun. That I want them to do a couple more prowls down in common, and then we can definitely start playing some rogues again in Pauper. It will be a deck that I need to rebuild. It's been a while since I played Pauper Rogues. The last time I played it, it was very hostile. I think Cloud of Fairies was still in the format, and so it was tough to be playing anything but Cloud of Fairies deck, and just got murdered by just the sheer tempo there. But I mean, the deck looks solid. The Mizzium Skin in the hand, the Mizzium Skins is definitely a great card of keeping your cards both resilient against cards like Doomblade or Lightning Bolt and Electrickery with Overload. So that's a pretty good option. I'm not sure if you need it in the main. If it's more of a sideboard card, it's probably good either way. This could also be your 2 fairies here by cutting like the Mistcloak Herald or the Tandem Lookout and the Mizzium Skin and throwing both the fairies in. Hidden Strings, this is kind of fun. I don't know if you really have a lot of payoff with it. This is, again, something that would work really well with the Spell Sorcerer's Rite, because then you could Hidden Strings untap some lands and have a Spell Sorcerer's Rite active, or something like Counterspell. So Counterspell would be the right card to be throwing in here. Maybe I'm missing something that you're untapping. Tapping it down is good the first time that you cast Hidden Strings. It kind of loses its luster after that. Hidden Strings is fun with stuff that triggers off of casting. So like Gutter Snipe was always fun, or Prowess triggers with Hidden Strings. However, this deck, it doesn't seem like you have anything that really synergizes too much with Hidden Strings. Bone Splinter is always a pretty decent little addition to a deck like this with 2 unblockable creatures, as it can get through the damage. I'm not going to complain about that option. And the Writ of Passage, enchant creature with attacks if its power is 2 or less, is unblockable, and you can forecast it from your hand. The majority of your cards are pretty much unblockable. I understand it with the Ninja. Same thing with Hidden Strings. I guess it's a way that you can throw it and then get some additional damage in. Again, the Tandem Lookout I don't think is quite where this deck wants to be. I think that it's not going to get enough additional card draw to really matter. I'd rather see like the tempo cards like Counterspell, Daze, to stop your opponent from doing things rather than keeping up this huge card draw. Ninja is a good way to do that by itself. The Fairy Miscreant is another way to do so. I can't even Augur of Bolas at that point. A lot of times when you're in blue, Augur of Bolas is just a duck card to throw in. Not to dissuade you from running it. I think Tandem Lookout's great. I have built Tandem Lookout decks before. I've usually paired them with red, like the Thermal Alchemist, or the, and that's where Hidden Strings would be pretty cool, or the Archer. If that's how you want to make the deck really shine, I think that's the place for it. And then we have the 14 lands, which is pretty much on par. Yeah, these are fine choices here. So again, it's pretty similar to the Delver decks, but different enough. So kudos to you. This is a pretty sweet little list. Sideboard cards, if you're looking for sideboard cards, though, I would just look at a Delver sideboard, to be honest. Hydroblast would be good in the sideboard. They can take care of that pesky Electrickery and Lightning Bolts. Probably want a lot of counter magic if you're not going to run any in the sideboard, or the main board. This is where the sideboard, the Dazes, the Gushes, the counter spells, that type of stuff would be good. Alrighty. So, how's everyone enjoying Brawl? Anyone played Brawl? I played 2 matches of Brawl yesterday, and the format's actually quite refreshing. Here is the Brawl deck that I ran. I need to update this. Where the hell? Don't tell me you didn't save it. Oh, there it is. I need to update this because I had to take 2 cards out of this. I had to take this card out, the Johnny Unyielding, and I had to take out the... I guess I already did take it out. Or Johnny Valiant Protector. And the Gideon out of the deck because all the copies we had in our store were Pringles. And we could identify exactly where they were in my deck when I shuffled. So this is a card that is unplayable in paper at the moment because there are no versions that are not Pringles. So I don't think it works that well anyway. I updated the list a little bit to this Brawl deck, this Huatli Brawl. It actually does very well. Brought in all the Mana Dorks. I don't think you want to cut on Mana Dorks. So there's the Naga Vitalist, the Druid of the Cow, the Drover the Mighty, the Chandler Initiate, and the Servant of the Conduit. That's definitely where you want to be. I'm not too sold on the animation module and the durable handicraft combo. It's still in at the moment. Forgot what I added for the last card for this particular deck. Angel of Condemnation is just absolutely amazing in this deck, as it allows you to get extra value out of cards like the Regal Caracal and the Angel of Invention, or even Cultivator Blades, or even there's a few cards earlier on that can be flickered to get some more value, like Rishkar, for example. But it ended up doing pretty well. Recovered against, we had a Nicol Bolas control deck that wiped my board 5 times, and I still came back for it, because if you get a Huatli Radiant Champions emblem out quick, it's tough for those control decks to keep up the draw that you're going to draw through. So what are some... So the little pod that we played yesterday, there was a Galta Primal Hunter, there was a Depala Dwarf Swarm deck, myself, and a Nicol Bolas Grixis control. So I found Brawl to be quite fun. It's a good pace from Commander. Once you get a good Commander group established, and they have cards like Grim Monoliths and you know, mana vaults and mana crypts, and Commander starts to feel more like Legacy. It starts to feel very, very degenerate. And it was kind of a breath of fresh air to be trying Brawl out with only standard cards. Now, yes, I would like 75 cards and go back to 40 life, possibly. I don't know, 30 life seems pretty weird to me. Same thing with the 60 card deck. I would actually like more options. I hear them with their frustration with, like, well, you couldn't put a pirate deck together or a dinosaur deck and have enough cards. Sure. However, I even think pirates and dinosaurs would have enough if they really stretched it. Because you only need to find, like, what, like 20 creatures and 20 lands and then 20 other cards, or, I mean, more than 20 lands, 24 lands. And so you can fill it up with, like, artifacts that are good. The ban list is absolutely laughable. There's no reason for a ban list in this format. And again, so there's some problems with Brawl, but overall, I think it was a pretty refreshing format to be played. So I'd like to hear everyone else's opinions on Brawl, if you enjoyed it, if you haven't played it yet, if you're never going to play it, if it's just a money suck. I agree with everyone. The way that Wizards presented it was absolutely laughable. It was they could have done a better job at selling it off. I actually agree with Tulare Community College today that the dual decks, this would have been a great opportunity to make Brawl decks and have the Scarab God versus the Locust God in a Brawl package. And it would have gotten much needed Scarab God reprint, would have sold the set, would have helped push their new format and got people excited about it. Have a little instruction manual of how to play Brawl. Have a little calendar, or not just that, or a little plug saying, go to your local game store. We're going to do a sanctioned Brawl. There will be a Brawl event weekend where there will be a lot of alternate art commanders, Brawl, like specifically only for Brawl, that you can only get this event. But who am I? Who am I to run a community management? You know, Wizards of the Coast just fails at almost everything they do to a laughable level. And I don't know why they execute things without any sort of planning behind it. Like, they could have used this opportunity for a great kind of intro to the format, but just hire some competent people. I mean, it take Tulare Community College like 2 seconds to think it up, and then, you know, took me 2 seconds to think of a good plan that they could have actually orchestrated to get people excited about it. That's where they need to be using a lot of their alternate art and their promos, I think, is for event specifics. They need to do a good job of weeding out the fake stores and cultivating the stores that do try to promote their game, like Gun Road Games here in Richfield, Utah. So anyway, Brawl this is still the only deck that I've played so far. I do want to try out like a Tally. I had some ideas for some other brawlers. Shram looks really cool with the new set coming out. Shram just seems busted. A lot of the legendary. There's so many legendary creatures in the next set that Brawl is going to be all over the place. But make a one with nothing deck? Well, first of all, that'd be Modern Legacy and Rev Jeremiah. Those are two formats that I, at the moment, do not play. I've messed around with the standard, an idea for a standard deck. Where the hell is it? You can see all the, look at all these caution marks on standard. Yes, I've pretty much sold out of MTGO standard and MTGO modern, so none of these decks are even playable at the moment. But there was a deck I was working on called Reason to Believe that I saw a shell that I don't know why people aren't running this card. So there was a list going around with Hour of Promise that looked promising that tried to get out Zakama or Gishoth as quickly as possible. And I thought, well, why not Reason to Believe? The Scry 3 and then Believe's Aftermath, you get to look at the top card of your library and put it on your battlefield, can be set up very early after an Hour of Promise. You can Reason and Scry and then throw this on top, and you can actually cast Believe in the same turn and then get out something like Gishoth. So, usual suspects, Zakama, Gishoth spring to mind, Nezel Primal Tide, Atali as a one of, the Regisaur Alphas to give the Gishoth Sun's Avatar some haste, and I am running the Forerunner of the Empire plus 1 Polyraptor, because why not? That'd be fun. So this seemed like a pretty fun standard deck. I could get into something like this. However, I haven't played standard for quite a while. And I don't know how well a deck like this would actually perform. Don't know if I want to invest in the cards. How much would it even cost for me to fill out this deck to even play it here? We have, the sideboard wasn't even complete. Had some other things on the sideboard. Of course, this would need some work to go. Gilded Lotus reprint. Hey, I have not even looked at Mythic Spoiler. Gilded Lotus is getting a reprint in standard, huh? Or is it in something else? Dominaria. Oh, look at that, Zach. Get rid of all our Gilded Lotuses, Zach. Probably too late. Kind of cool. Yep. That should play out pretty well with Zakama. It's going to definitely be a good replacement for Hour of Promise, because they're doing very similar things. They're ramping up, except you can use this one on the same turn. Right now with like Paradox Engine, that seems pretty good too with the Gilded Lotus. Yeah, woo! Those Metalwork Colossus decks might actually be able to make a comeback. Or the Paradox Engine. Was it Metalwork Colossus? Yeah, both of them should be able to have a pretty decent little comeback. That's cool. Huh. Nice. We can go down these spoilers since the chat's not too active. We haven't... Kind of a slow stream here. Appreciate everyone that is here, though. Helm of the Host, of 4 mana at the beginning of combat of your turn. Create a token that's a copy of the equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary. That token gains haste. Pretty cool commander card. It's pretty stupid on some cards, too, that it exists right now as legendaries. We've seen the Oath of Teferi, right? You can activate the loyalty abilities of Planeswalker Control twice each turn rather than only once. When it enters the battlefield, you could exile a permanent and then return to the battlefield. So it can reset a Planeswalker that's used its ability already and then use it again and then use it again. That's kind of nifty for some of the 4-drop Planeswalkers. We'll have to see how well Oath of Teferi. This is a huge converted mana cost. The Baird Steward of Argive. 4 mana for 2/4 Vigilance. Creatures can attack you or Planeswalkers control unless they pay 1. Sure. Not bad. Very good in draft. Very good in limited for sure. The Two-Headed Giant. I saw this one earlier on social media. Kind of a cool little ability for 4/4. You flip 2 coins. If both are heads, you gain double strike. If both are tails, you gain menace. So of course the theory is that if both heads agree, they do something. If you roll a heads and a tails, which is actually going to be a lot more. So if we look at statistically, you can roll heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, heads, or tails, tails, right? So yeah, it's a 50% chance of doing something decent. 25% chance of doing what you want it to do. Alrighty, so that's not a bad card. The Grun Lonely King, Rest in Peace Harambe. Harambe 2.0. For 6 mana for a 5/5 kicker, legendary creature, Ape Warrior. It comes in the battlefield with 5+1/+1 counters on it if you kicked it. And if it attacks alone, it would double its power and toughness. That's pretty decent in Commander. It can almost one-shot. They made it specifically only do 20 damage, though, huh? You have to do it twice. The filler card of Tolarian Scholar. This Tolarian Scholar is kind of cool. I actually think this is like... Tony Kukoc did a whole video about how this is a bad card and why you should, bad cards have a place. I think people are underestimating that this is Wizard in a format that wants Wizards. I actually think this is going to be drafted a lot higher than people are thinking that it will be. I've noticed that in formats in the past, having a relevant creature type is enough to push a card. And so when this card says reduce the cost of particular cards by whatever, or you can't even cast, isn't there ones you can't even cast unless you control a wizard, or it does something more if you have a wizard? I think these are actually going to be less fillers than people are going to give it credit for. We also haven't seen how much 2 power has as an effect on this format. A lot of times that's the difference between a card like this being unplayable and extremely playable, is if 2 drops, especially 2/2s for 2s, bears, are a pivotal piece of the meta of the draft format. So anyway, yeah, not constructed playable. Slyn, Vote of the Rising Deep is an 8-mana 8/8 kicker that when you kick it, you return all Merfolk, Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents back to their hand. Sure, but that's at that point 10 mana to do that. That is quite hefty. Alrighty. Memorial to War. Enters battlefield tapped, add red, sacrifice to destroy a land. That's actually not that terrible of a card. It might be modern playable. I don't know. The enter battlefield tapped is a little bit of a problem. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not, actually. It does keep in check a lot of the flip lands from Ixalan, though. Some decks, too, don't even really care about their turn 1. So Memorial War could see play in those decks that just want a way to deal with lands that are problematic. Memorial to Folly. Sacrifice it to return target creature card from your grave or your hand. Now this one's a little bit more playable because it gets that is definitely going to be value. This one, see, so this Memorial of War is probably not that draftable. Memorial to Folly is definitely draftable. Memorial of Genius, same thing. Sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. Later on, that's pretty decent as well. And the Memorials of Glory, that one's also really good to create 2/1. The Memorial of War seems out of place compared to these ones. These all seem like very good limited cards, whereas this has no limited viability. And 2/1s, 2 cards, or return a creature. So Raise the Alarms, Divination. So actually this one's getting the most bang for its buck, but it's costing 1 more. And just the whatever the return card is, the 1 mana. Bring it back. All right, Memorial of Unity. Sacrifice it to look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a creature, and put them in your hand. That one's also not terrible. That one's cool. That one's 3 mana to do so. Sure, that's pretty good gas later on, after you've kind of petered off. All right, Divest. 1 mana, target player reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or a creature card from. All right, so these are getting a lot better. I like this for Pauper. So Pauper finally gets a creature, because wasn't Ostracize and Despise uncommons? Let's check that out on Scryfall to see if I'm just... No, it is legal in Pauper. Surprised Ostracize actually doesn't see play in Pauper that often. Seems like a perfect addition for Mono Black. Well, Mono Black's actually good at actually killing creatures, though, so possibly not. And Despise is just not even worth it then. That is not legal in Pauper, but that just gets a Planeswalker. Yeah, it doesn't even matter. But with this, the ability for this to actually grab an artifact makes it a lot more playable in Pauper, because there are relevant decks you could put this in as a sideboard. And like Affinity, it's always going to hit something relevant. In Kadatha Boros, this is probably something you'd want to bring in. You can rip out a land. At that point, you can rip out a Prophetic Prism. Even against Tron, yeah, this is not a bad card. And then you can also get the better options. So against Kadatha Boros, if it's like, oh, Prophetic Prison or a Glint Hawk or a 2/3, whatever the core Skyfisher is, then versus Tron, you can actually, if it's Hulk Tron, you can grab an Ulamog's Crusher, get it out, or you can get an Expedition Map, or you can get something that's actually not bad at all. That's a pretty good. I like him exploring with these type of stuff, and then that aren't playable, and try to make them push them without pushing them into like Thoughtseize. So this is pretty good. Plus, this is also really good versus Kaladesh. Maybe a little bit too late to stop Kaladesh stuff, but it can rip out Scrappy Scrounger, for example. Or if they were to unban Smuggler's Copter, it could rip out Smuggler's Copter. Another card that deals with Smuggler's Copter. All right, the Get You Chronicler, 2 mana for enters the battle for return target instant search a card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is just strictly better, I would say, than the Archivist, which is or Anarchist, excuse me, which is a 2/2 for 5 mana. No, is it 2? Okay, so this is actually 6 mana, but you can actually cast it early to have a blocker. Yeah. I don't know. It could replace like Mnemonic Wall. Other than it's 1 mana more, but you know, some of those matchups getting that 1/3 out just to block is relevant. So I do think this will see Pauper play, but it's just adding another option to decks that already play cards that are similar. All right, Sage of Latnam is a 2 mana to sacrifice an artifact, draw a card. Okay, it's not Pauper, it's uncommon. That would be actually pretty sweet in Pauper. I don't know why they didn't throw this down to common. Yeah, it would have made like the Ichor Wellsprings and the other artifacts that want to die actually have some more value. I don't know if there's a deck that want at the moment, but that'd be pretty sweet. Still pretty sweet with this Age of Latnam. We do have like Prophetic Prism that's in the meta at the moment that can draw you an additional card. The Atlas, the Cinderwind. This is a good one. Flying Haste whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. Wizards you control get +1/+1. So it includes itself. Yeah, that's a very potent card. For the... Again, this is where Wizards matters. So I'm not as bleak as people are about this Tolarian Scholar. So if you pick up like a couple of these Cinderwinds early, and then you have like Tolarian Scholars, that's some huge payoff for like a prowess trigger that hits more than one creature. Flying Haste, this is a bonkers card. Karn, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. As opponent chooses one of them, put that card into your hand and the other with a silver counter, not a sliver counter, a silver counter on it. Put a card you own with a silver counter on it from exile into your hand as a -1, and you can create a 0/0 construct artifact creature token with that creature gets +1 for each artifact. So at least it's a 1/1. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This card will definitely see play. It's got a very, very high loyalty right off the bat to draw a card. Yeah, this is insanely good. This is one of the better Planeswalkers printed in a long time. I'd say since Chandra. And then even since Chandra was the best Planeswalker since the Liliana before that. So this is up there, I would say, in power level with a lot of the other Planeswalkers from the past. So I'm all in on this card side of Urza. See, where was I on my spoiler video? I told people in the comment section to rate this set, and people are saying this is a shitty set. Like everyone's saying this is such a bad set. I disagree. This is the best set that I have seen in a long time. As far as not only representing Timmy, Johnny, Spike, looks like it has a very, very fun draft format. Looks like it has a lot of interesting cards for standard. Even Pauper might get some help here and there, and Modern definitely gets some cards right next to it. The Goblin War Chief that could easily see play that currently isn't Modern legal. This Cinder Wind is absolutely something that I think is powerful enough for Modern as well. In like a Storm base, you throw like a Grim Lavamancer. That's a wizard. Isn't Young Pyromancer? Is that a shaman? Did they didn't they make Young Pyromancer a shaman, which was so weird? I guess because it makes elemental tokens, but. Snapcaster Mage is a wizard, though. Young Pyromancer. Yeah, Shaman. Ugh. That's weird. But again, there's still plenty of wizards in Modern that could actually benefit off of this. Gitaxian Probe's gone, but there's still like Manamorphose. It's a free spell that can pump stuff up. And this could definitely get out of control. Kilnfiend's not a wizard, but anyway. The Mudrath of the Gravetide is definitely one of the coolest cards. Well, let's go to Goblin War Chief. This is allowing goblins in Modern to have something that reduces the cost and give haste. That's a pretty sweet little card. Could make it so goblins could go more of a go bigger strategy. I might make me want to play Collective Goblins again in Modern. That was a deck that I messed around with. Goblin War Chief, of course, will go in that little list, right? This is the first. It hasn't been legal before in Modern until now, right? I can't remember. The Moldatha the Gravetide is insanely awesome. Commander, insanely awesome for Brawl. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card for each permanent type from your graveyard. That is just bonkers. This card is crazy. So, artifacts. Lands, like Evolving Wilds, you throw it in the graveyard. Fetch lands. So, artifacts like any sort of egg type artifact. We have some good ones in the format. Don't we have the Terrarian? Or did that rotate with Shadows? Was that in one of the Shadows, or was that Kaladesh? Let me look at Terrarian. Why am I thinking Terrarian? Or what's that damn artifact called? How do you spell it? Terror? Terror. Someone put it in the comment section. I am having my moment today. Can't spell that one for the life of me. Terrar. I just looked that up. Exactly how you spelled it. And it came back with nothing. There we go. All right. So, yes, it is. Okay, it did. Womp womp. Eldritch Moon. So it did rotate. But that would have been pretty sweet for a card. We have similar cards, though. Renegade Map. We have a lot of the implements kill themselves right now. I'm not sure I talked about this earlier in stream with the energy one that gains 3 life or 6 life, or how much energy is that? The one they used to use in Aetherworks Marble. Then you can actually get some energy off of it. So any deck that actually runs Glitzy Siphoner type stuff does what it wants to do. Not too shabby. This Moldatha the Gravetide. Again, why were people upset about this set? I think it's awesome. I have a hard time complaining about this. We get another 2/1/1 1-drop. The Siege Gang Commander reprint. This is going to be a fun little standard. What are people bitching about? Daragaz Reincarnated, 7 mana, flying triple haste. It would die instead, exile with 3 egg counters. The beginning of your upkeep, if Daragaz is exiled with an egg counter on it, remove an egg counter from it. Then, if it has no egg counters on it, return it to the battlefield. All right. That is okay, I guess. It's another thing that can be hit off the deck that we just... the Reason to Believe. That'd be kind of fun. Because once it's out, it's got that little time clock on it, and then it just comes back. The Dauntless Bodyguard, a 2/1 for 1 mana. And you choose another creature and then sacrifice it to gain Indestructible. Very solid card. It's almost like a mini... what's that? 2/1 Flying Spirit. But again, this is just getting out for some damage early on. This actually seems modern playable in Modern Humans. Not quite sure if there's a slot for it, but sometimes you'd want to protect particular cards like Athalia, for example. So this is definitely a good little sideboard option. Seal Away. Flash, when it enters the battlefield, exile target tap creature an opponent controls until Seal Away leaves the battlefield. That's an insane little removal spell. I get it. It's got to be tapped. And sometimes the creatures that you have issues with are not tapped. Like, you want to swing it in for lethal and they have an unblocked creature. I get it. But this seems to be like a very reasonable removal spell. It just seems better than something like the Gideon's Intervention that does 4 damage. Or we have an impeccable timing right now. It does 3 damage to an attacking creature. Maybe they think it's more versatile. It can be hit by an enchantment hate that then gets it back. Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I like Seal Away. I think it's pretty versatile with the flash for what it does. We know about the Siege Gang Commander. If you've never played this card, you should play this card. It's absolutely a really, really fun card to play with. Creates 3/1/1 Red Goblin tokens that you can then sacrifice. The Dawnbringer we got to in my spoiler video, I believe. I think we've seen everything else up to this point. Pretty sweet little spoiler, especially even with the Gilded Lotus. The value really seems to be here with Dominaria. The creativity seems to be here with Dominaria. The balance and the as far as the limited pools. This is a good set. This is a good set. I don't know why people are bitching about it. You got to give credit where credit's deserved to Wizards, and so far it's good. It's good. Anyway, all right. Any other questions? I'm going to try to do about, I don't know, another half an hour, and we'll call this stream good. Again, it's been kind of a dead stream, but I appreciate everyone that has been here. Maybe one of these days I'll actually schedule a stream. Yeah, this was kind of a spur of the moment stream. 5-0'd with that Goblins deck, and then decided, yeah, we got to show this. I got to show off that I can play. Every time I stream it, though, I end up doing dismal as I make play mistake after play mistake because Casey just tries to distract me the entire time. Hashtag blame Casey. All right. Questions. Pauper, Market. What else we got going? Can Nova Teferi break standard Planeswalker Ultimates? I don't know if there's any of them that can get up to 3 right off the bat. The thing is, though, it probably deserves to break it at 5 mana. Like, that's a lot of setup. And then we have Vraska's Contempt to start it in, or to keep it in check for sure. So, yeah. Wonder how much it would be to finish off this. What are Zakamas going for these days? One of these days I'll invest back in MTGO. Unfortunately, all my money's like in Spellquellers right now that refuse to go up from the price I bought them. Ugh, $3.90 today. Womp womp. Zakama. Yeah, it's not too bad. I wonder how much it would be to finish off this deck. Maybe we can play a matchup with this terrible Reason to Believe. And so Gishoff. $1.20. Oh yeah, this is reasonable. This is reasonable. I'm sure Reason to Believe is nothing. Polyraptor is probably nothing. Tally's probably nothing. Thunderhead. All right. So we just need the Scatter Grows and the Sheltered Thickets. I hate to buy back into these. What are they going at these days, though? All right. We're doing it. All right. So Reason to Believe, trade. We'll play a standard match. Maybe I'll do this for a Rogue's Alley. I'll bring back Rogue's Alley. And with Dominaria, standard. Where the hell is standard? Why they put standard at the very bottom? Even Wizards doesn't want you playing standard. All right, let's get these cards here, and we'll finish this off with a. We'll lose some matchups with. So we need Nizal. Nizhal. Thunder. Head Migration. And let's see what else we needed here. Scatter Grow, Sheltered Thickets. And I think we're good after that. I don't know what I need in the sideboard. Scatter Grows, Sheltered Thickets. Sheltered Thickets might be the expensive part. Yeah, not too bad. Oh, we need Forerunners. We need Forerunners. Alright, what in the world do people run in the sideboard these days for? Probably struggle. Ew, we probably need to pick up some more struggle to survives. I don't know. I'm not even know if I'm sold on these Forerunner of the Empires. They want to be more Polyraptor sideboard. Oh, I need Polyraptors too. I'm going to get another Polyraptor for the sideboard. Just for funsies. And we can put the Forerunner there too. I don't know how well this will work out. Struggle to survive. We probably want like 3 of those because it's good. Probably want a braids in the sideboard. I don't know how anal I'm going to be here. Or for braids, or the Polyraptor braid combo needs to be in. See, I thought about some cool little interactions here. The Forerunner can go grab a creature, put it on top, and then you could reason afterwards. No, that'd just be pointless because you want the Forerunners. I think I'm going to put the Polyraptor Forerunner sideboard and then just put like a braids and then a struggle, and then that puts us at pretty good removal early on. I'm not quite sure what in the world people are even doing in Standard these days. It's been weeks and weeks since I played it. So metagame, let's see here. We have sideboard options, struggle to survive, Chandra. I don't think I have a Chandra. Don't want to buy a Chandra. Deathgorger Scavenger. Do we care though? Naturalize. Naturalize is actually Thrashing Brontodon. Magma Spray. Might need to do a Magma Spray. Struggle, a braid. So they're running more struggles in the main. Then, I don't know if we have, maybe Sweltering Suns or more sideboard. And we can just rely on struggle to survive in a braid. And then Sweltering Suns can be sideboard. We have a whole play set of them in the sideboard. His deck's gonna be terrible. I guess we could do like Deathgorger Scavenger or something else like a Carnage Tyrant. I'm not going to buy a Carnage Tyrant. Screw that crap. Put a 1 of Magma. No, Magma Sprays are definitely in most people's mains as well. Maybe let's do that. We got the Braze, Struggle. Another Struggle on the side. Okay, that can work for me. So we need Polyraptors and Struggles. All right, let's lose some tickets. I have a standard deck. Look at me. Okay, let's just cry here, because this is a pretty bad opening hand. I'm going to keep it, though, because we like to keep bad opening hands. Again, I have not a clue what we're playing against because I have not played Standard in ages. It's been like a month, at least. Not even played much of Rivals of Ixalan Standard. As soon as it just Grixis Energy took over the meta, I'm like, I'm not playing another energy-dominated format. We'll go Scatter Groves here. Hitting a land drop wasn't bad. We can maybe cycle the Sweltering Suns if we need to. A Decoction Module. This can be someone else's little janky brew, I'm sure. This is the Animation Module combo. They can go crazy, right? There's a Get to Paradise. That one's awesome to grab. So we're good for Reason to Believe here. And there's another Decoction Module. Yeah, this has got to be, you're right. This is the old school Thopters. So blue-red Thopters. We got Zacama now, which is going to be great versus this particular match. White, red, green. So still need, it doesn't really matter what we do here. Yeah, Fatal. You want me to play Approach the Second Sun? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can't beat that matchup. I don't know if I need a lot of control. Yeah, Gift of the Paradise is a great way to gain life early on. Like if Whirler Virtuoso is going to gain... Wait, Whirler Virtuoso, it goes the infinite with this, correct? Because again, no, it needs one more Decoction Module. Fabrication Module. Alright, cool. Alright, so we can Hour of Promise here. We don't get the zombies off of the Hour of Promise, but that's fine. Or we can go the Alpha to... I think we want to get the... So here we'll get two... I don't know if we need... An Arch of Araska does seem pretty good to get here. But I think it's just 2 tap lands at the moment. So it's going to be deserts. So is there 2 deserts here? I didn't put any tap lands in here. Just 2 deserts is with the Hashep Oasis. Did I even put a lot of deserts in here to try to even get this Our Promise to work? Don't think I thought this through. I think I needed to add a couple of the cycling deserts. But we'll go grab 2 of these. All in Goblins, Fernando. That's what we're playing. All in. Now, I played that earlier, or watched the replay. And I just want to show some of the stuff I'm working on. I haven't given up on Standard too much. There was a few little projects, side projects. My life is totally confusing, huh? There's the Maverick Thopterus, which is going to give my opponent a bazillion servos or energy. And so I don't know if I go for the Sweltering Sun here. We can't quite Zacama. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're still away from Zacama. But I can't Sweltering Suns either. Casey, the list is in the description. Like, literally in the description. Alright, so this puts us away from Sweltering Suns, though. So, first things first. I think we need to do another Hour of Promise. Not sure it's going to do a lot. And of course there's a Metallic Rebuke. Yep. We'll show the Regisaur Alpha. And throw in a red source. And play the Scattergroves. I'm not even sure Zakama is going to do a lot for us here. It will allow us to kill both the artifacts, but with 4 cards in my opponent's hand plus Metallic Rebuke, we might just be SOL here. So the Abrades in the sideboard will be really good. I don't know if we need like Struggle to Survive. I hope you didn't update it, Casey. Hope you made a new product and didn't kill the old one. All right, so there are a lot of scenarios can definitely go wrong for us here. Even getting an energy. No, that shouldn't be too. Something like the Whirler Virtuoso would be absolutely backbreaking. But next turn we do have the 9 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perfect 9 mana for Zakama, and then Zakama can take out the 2 Thopters if that's the case. The route I want to go. I wonder if my opponent's afraid of, like, Galta. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's another counterspell in my opponent's hand. But there's really nothing I can do at that point. There's no way I can play around counter. I'm just dead to lethal next turn. If there is no counter. The only way this happens is if, yeah. Alright. We'll put it in the sideboard. The more Sweltering Suns, I guess, would be okay. It's stuff like a Braid and Hour of Devastation that I think I need to put in. I'm going to slow us way down without the alphas. I don't know if I even need Nizal. Then we can bring in just more hate. I guess we can bring in all the Sweltering Suns. Bring it all in. I don't know if I need Struggle to Survive, though. I don't know if my opponent uses their graveyard. And this deals 1 damage to each creature. The Forerunner of the Empire actually does seem pretty good. This little combo. Instead of something like Sweltering Suns, possibly? Sweltering Suns gets rid of the Whirler Virtuoso and all of the targets, though, which I think is going to be a pretty... Yeah. I don't know what the right play is. Okay, this is actually a pretty decent little hand here with a Braid. My opponent can't do any shenanigans with a Braid. Like the deck my opponent is playing is probably quite weak with all the Braids running around. And that's the name of the game, is just to keep them. My opponent could have brought in Negate. I still think it's worthwhile just to hit this Gift of Paradise. If there's a Negate, there's a Negate. Okay. We'll be in good shape here. Because next turn we can actually Thunderhead Migration and Abrade something. Field of Ruin. Well then. Decides to go for a fabrication module instead, though. This allows me to ramp up a turn. Spring to Mine puts into play tap, so we'll just add to green, do the Thunderhead migration by revealing Zakama. We'll go get a blue at this point. And upgrade the fabrication module. Might as well get it out of there before it can start improvising. And surprised my opponent decided to do that rather than just Field Ruin the Gift of Paradise. Glint Nest Crane. No cards. Hey, I'm not the only one that hits Glint Nest Crane and doesn't find anything. So this will allow me to use Gift of Paradise again this turn. So I can do Scavenger Grounds. We could go for a Reason to Believe, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I could actually go Reason for Believe right here. If and then if we don't hit it properly, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we'll do that. And unfortunately, I think we're going to put them all on the bottom. So it doesn't hit this time. I don't want the Shelter Thicket either. And then we can go Spring to Mind. So probably should have done that first. No, I couldn't do that first because we were looking for Reason to Believe. So that just kind of... Reason to Believe kind of miffed. I wonder if another Scry ability would be good for this particular deck. I'm going to go another Island. Allows us to go the Mind. And I believe Decoction Module is a card we want to get rid of. It does have Metallic Rebuke, but that gets it out of the way if that's the case. We take 1, go down to 22. Sweltering Sun's not something we need. We'll draw 2 cards. Decides on countering this one. Okay. Rather than the Decoction Module. That is fine, though. So we've taken down 2 of the combo pieces. If my opponent, like, spreads out this turn, we can just Sweltering Suns. There's a Chart of Course. Arch of Araska. Well, we'll YOLO. See if there's another Metallic Rebuke. All right, so it just goes into my hand. Sure. Can't do anything. I don't know if I want to cycle this Sweltering Sun. I don't think I do. I think I allow it. See if my opponent goes Field of Ruin here. Maybe I cycle at that point. Goes for the Arch of Araska. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll wait. Yeah, I'm glad I waited. As I think this is the better play, we can use Zakama for the next turn. Just sweep that Were the Virtuoso. It's another combo piece. Another Metallic Rebuke. Metallic Rebuke doesn't work here. Unsummon. Still a card for a card, sure. And we will get the Hour of Promise out. Don't have another Arch of Araska to utilize here. That's fine, though. I'm just going to get 2 deserts. Never mind. Doesn't matter. We have all the lands we need. So I do have to worry about another Metallic Rebuke. Fabrication Model. Hopefully my opponent gets greedy here. Am I being ghosted here too? Because if I am, I swear to God. Because why not the Were the Virtuoso there? This is a clear sign my opponent's got a Metallic Rebuke up. Which is absolutely ridiculous. You ghosters are pathetic. Alright, so let's go red, red, green, 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 red. We're going to Zakama it and... Whoops, we need white. I still think I go for it. Get that last one out of the way. Oh, yeah. That is true. They can't get the Gift of Paradise. You are correct. Because there's no point, right, to waiting a turn. Because my opponent just... I could cycle... The Shelter Thicket. Yeah. I'm actually going to cycle this Shelter Thicket. Which this is still annoying because Metallic... I believe Metallic Rebuke is still in my opponent's hand and can still cast it. And we're not... any further away. Or closer to... Well, we can cast this one. Now, if this one gets rebuked... We've got 2 fabrication modules dead, a decoction module dead. Alright, that one gets rebuked. Of course my opponent's got another one. But now, there are going to be 3 cards in hand. One of them is going to be Whirler Virtuoso. So I'm feeling good about not having another counterspell in hand. Especially if the opponent taps out here. Ugh. Of course, Chart a Course. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So this at least can get rid of a lot of cards here. With the comma, so we'll go white, white. Untap all my lands. Just going to use it right now. Get rid of a Maverick, Thopterus. Do it again. And we'll get rid of an artifact. Still 3 Thopter tokens left behind. And my opponent's going to scoop it up. I don't know if it's over at that point. Forward of the Empire actually does seem good to put in here. I don't know if I care about going the Polyraptor. Maybe we will. It's just better than Gishoth here. To try to hit more Zakamas. Atali's bad. I don't know why I kept Atali in. But, I mean, this combo requires a lot of work to get there. Is something like Thunderhead Migration pretty bad at this point? It'd be 5 cards I'd have to take out. So we're gonna take out 2 Gishoths, and maybe the Hour Devastations are just too. We'll go 1 Polyraptor. I don't need 2 of them. Then something like Reason to Believe loses a lot of its luster here now. But that's the whole point to making this deck, was Reason to Believe. The Migration is something I probably still need. Gift of Paradise is something I still need. Or maybe I just don't need as many Forerunners. Yeah, because this is only one other dinosaur. I don't even have dinosaurs that work with this. Yeah, I'm not going to go the Forerunner. I think it's just too tough. We'll bring in the 1. Pretty terrible, but we'll keep it. Got the Gift of Paradise in the... Huh. So we can go... Seems pretty early for Reason to Believe. Yeah, probably should wait on it. If we want to hit that, it's the comma. No red source by my opponent. Gluttonous Crane. It missed last time. You can miss again, right? Right. Oh, kicking the balls there. I know that feeling all too well. And no red. Still no red. Lots of Chart a Courses. And there's one right there. I already played the land. Should have played the land second. There's our Arch of Araska. And then we'll play a Desert next turn. So we can Hour Promise to get at least the 2 zombies. There is the... Comes into play tapped red source. There's the Fabrication module. Alright, getting kind of scary here. Definitely have time to set this up, though. There's the comma. So reason to believe actually would have been reasonable this turn to. All right, so we'll go the Oasis. Get out the Hour of Promise. Go get red. And 2 Oasises. Whoops. Nope, I need to get 2 of them to get the zombies. But I need the red source anyway, I believe, so. Yeah, so I should have got dual lands there at that point. Yeah, dual lands would have been better anyway. Why am I thinking this could only get base? I'm all over the place tonight. And that is a weird sign. In my opponent's hand, there's nothing better to do, just attacking for 2. Hour Devastation will be nice later on. We'll get the Arch of Araska. We could go for Reason to Believe here. Yeah, we're going to Reason. Perfect. So, this... I think I want all... No, this can go to the bottom. This can go on the top. This can go on the top. And now we have... Reason. Oops, I overpaid. Unfortunately, it doesn't... Gonna get unsummoned here. Womp womp. An unsummon. Well then. We have a Braid coming up next turn. My opponent's just going to go for the same thing. So... 2 mana. Yeah, I think that we can just do... So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep, we'll just tap it all. And my opponent scoops it up. That's fun. Scoops is a combo. So reasonably it's kind of fun. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with the untap. Possibly the 7/7 Flying Trample Haste card might be better coming out for a card that actually just ramps it out. Karn gets really interesting in a deck like this going forward. But Clorox free streams. Oh, we got purple here under a different account name. Hatch. Hatch like the movie Hatch? It's not a bad movie. Yeah. But there, you know, the problem with Standard right now for cards like Reason to Believe is there just wasn't anything reasonable, to believe in, with or that gets some sort of ETB effect that doesn't have to have cast. So Dominaria does though have a few that I think are pretty good to ramp this into. Kind of a fun little deck. I know this isn't really my deck, though. It's just a shell that I took and threw Reason to Believe in. Reason to Believe was going to be one of the rogue, what is he called? Bad Brews? Tyler's Bad Brews. But then I really wanted to showcase Brawl and the new commander. So I chose the Firesong and Sunspeaker as the Bad Brews. How is Bad Brews going along, by the way? I haven't checked that in a while with... our little website here, Tyler's little project. Put out the Wall Pestilence. So if you haven't voted for Bad Brews here, come over and make sure that I end up beating Tyler. He's currently beating me with only 9 people voting. 2 for Scrawn, 2 for Kevin, 2 for Rooster, and 3 for Tyler. Casey, you didn't do a deck this time. Jeez, Casey, lazy. You can come check these decks out and see who did the baddest brew. Some people took that literally last time and voted for Tasty Snacky's Bad Brew. But anyway, Firesong and Sunspeaker, I think, is going to make a phenomenal Brawl commander. And we know how much, since Purple's in the stream, we know how much Purple is looking forward to playing that Brawl format, since it's just right up his alley, being a multiplayered and 60 card deck with 30 life. But yeah, that's all I got for stream this time. Kind of a short stream at only 2 hours and a half. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed these Pauper. I'll try to showcase more Pauper. I got an awesome, my favorite Pauper deck, Exhume, is the deck that I have the most fun with. To be honest, though, I'm not even sure if Exhume is playable at the moment. It works very similar to Inside Out. And Inside Out, I think, is just a more consistent job of doing this. But I'm going to try to do an entire deck tech for Exhume with a more high production video. Have the transcript, right, that's the word, transcript. I have the whole idea of the deck. I just need to record the audio and then do the editing for it. But anyway, Exhume, this is an insanely fun deck in in Pauper. The whole idea of the deck is to get out a turn 2 Ulamog's Crusher, or usually it's going to be a turn 3 Ulamog's Crusher, and a lot of times it can just win the game right there. So you run an entire list of cards to try to throw your Crusher and your Dragon Breath in the graveyard. The theory of the deck is that once it's in the graveyard, you exhume it back. Dragon's Breath comes attached to the Ulamog's Crusher and you attack in. The Gurmag Angler also can be hooked up to Dragon's Breath early. And the Striped River Winder is also a really good card to exhume back with Hexproof 5/5. But that's the deck I'm working on right now. Again, we'll get Rogue's Alley back. A lot of people have asked for it. And again, send me your bulk. If you have any bulk cards lying around, yeah, I don't think that I'd accept 3,000 garbage fires. Usually we like mixed bulk of just old cards, draft cards. A lot of Magic players just don't have any use. It's not feasible to really do anything with the bulk. As a store owner, it is feasible for me. We do have a wide variety of anything from modern to casual to legacy players to commander players that are always looking for some of these more obscure cards every now and again. So the more bulk, the merrier. We also do a lot of repack drafts here where we draft up a lot of the bulk and just use it as prize, like use all the money in as prize support, and have a fun opportunity to get people into the draft formats. So if you have any bulk lying around, I'd greatly appreciate it, rather than going to one of those evil big box stores like the Star City Games or the Card Kingdoms or the cool stuff, which most people do send their bulk off. But yep, also if you in the past just threw away your bulk, just send it to me and I will appreciate it. We'll cover your shipping for you if you send it in a reasonable fashion and give you store credit towards goods of the store. So appreciate everyone that's bought Pauper decks. This one you see before you will be available in a few days after I get the deck tech up. I may need to buy some dazes. I don't know how many dazes I've got going at the store, but this is a really, really fun. Went 3-0 in our little 8-man Pauper tournament we held a couple days ago with the deck. So it is viable. It can actually win some games, but I'll try to play it on some stream sometime. Anyway, I appreciate everyone joining the stream. And even though it's kind of a slow, quiet stream, I'll try to plan it better next time. Well, I say that, and probably will fail. Probably be a spur of the moment thing. And we'll get working on that Zoom deck. And yeah, I guess that's all I've got. Any questions or anything? Nah, I think I'm just going to... Thanks for watching.